All right, the Texas LSU game moving forward in Texas, the Heisman, what's going on in the NFL, and possibly what's going on in the MLB MVP, Cy Young, and Rookie of the Year. But first, I have to introduce my special guest, Jared Burkowski of Texas Football News on Instagram. Jared, thanks for coming on the show.
I'm happy to be here, Evan. It's a pleasure to be on the show. Listen to all of your episodes, and I'm a big fan, and it was just an honor being here with you today.
Excellent. All right. Well, I guess we might as well jump right into it. I mean, we were planning on doing this earlier, but to me it's so important that I want to talk about it now. So the first question is, what went wrong in the Texas LSU game? What went right in the Rice game? And moving forward against Oklahoma State.
Well, the LSU game was obviously you could point at the defense and the secondary, and I would say two problems for the Texas defense is obviously their young corners. Both of their corners are two sophomore corners who are very inexperienced. One of them, Jalen Green, has a bunch of upside coming in. He looked good in several other games this year, but the number 2 corner spot has been a ongoing battle. It was thought to be Anthony Cook coming in, but he got suspended for the first half of the LA Tech game, so Kobe Boyce took over, and Kobe Boyce had a very bad game against Louisiana Tech.
Right.
And some bonehead decisions from him. And also they had converted wide receiver Deshaun Jameson from wide receiver back to corner. He was a sophomore. And he was they liked him a lot in camp, but Kobe Boyce ended up getting the start. As we know, the Louisiana Tech game, he didn't do so well. And then the LSU game, Todd Orlando's defense likes to keep the corners out on an island. And he likes to blitz. He likes to be very aggressive. And so that's really where LSU was able to pick on the young corners. And also Caden Stearns, the Big 12 freshman defensive player of the year last year, has not had a very good season so far. Basically been non-existent in the secondary. And Texas has, the past 2 years, last year they had Charles Omenihu, who was a good pass rusher, but I'd include last year in this conversation. They have no penetration with like a 4-man rush. Very rarely do they get after the quarterback with a 4-man rush unless they blitz their linebacker, who's a sophomore, Joseph Osai. He's probably their best defensive player as of this season. He has 2 interceptions, and I think he has maybe 1 sack so far, but he's probably their best all-around defensive player. He could have 3 interceptions, but 1 was called back against Louisiana Tech. And that's really what I'd say is what Texas, that's what cost them the loss to LSU. And really, quite frankly, I don't think anyone thought Joe Burrow was gonna. I mean, I thought they'd have the offense opened up, but I didn't think anything like that.
I'll be the first to admit that I was wrong. I have never not said that LSU's overrated, but watching that game, Burrow is the Terminator, and he's an absolute machine. And as far as I'm concerned, he might be my favorite quarterback in college right now, just because. The style that they're playing, it's not like he's, running 1,000 yards or anything like these Heisman winners are. He's just such a pro-style quarterback, and he's going to be really interesting.
He went 31 for 39, 471 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Disgusting.
That's crazy. Only 8 incompletions. He did have the interception, but that was off a tip drill, and I mean those. You don't really have to count those. I wouldn't always count them.
Right.
So yeah, that's really what went wrong. Texas' offense got off to a really slow start too in the first half. We obviously know the Keontae Ingram drop touchdown on 4th and goal. That perfectly executed play. I'm all for Texas going forward on that 4th and goal. You executed literally everything right, but he drops the pass.
Right.
And then they also went forward on another 4th and goal. And Texas likes those power runs with Sam Ehlinger at quarterback, and I think they need to try to mix in some other things, a jump pass like Tim Tebow used to do. So that's the first half ultimately did kill Texas. Also, when they were down 13-7 after LSU kicked the field goal. They tried to go down the field, and I believe Sam got sacked, and then they ended up having to punt. LSU scored in 3 plays, went up 20-7. And that's really what. And obviously 3rd and 17, which I still don't know why Todd Orlando blitzed.
Oh yeah, that was it was on the money, the throw. We can't really deny that.
That was literally Joe Burrow could not have executed a better pass.
Right. Yeah, so a pretty rough game if you're Texas, but I don't know. I mean, LSU's so good, so I wouldn't beat yourself up too much. So moving on to Rice.
I want to make one more quick point about that. Everyone who is saying because they lost to LSU that Texas is not back,
I see.
I would have to say that's false, because I would name right now there are probably only several other teams in the country who could compete with LSU. Obviously, Alabama, Clemson, Georgia. I'd put Texas competed with them. Some people would say LSU wasn't trying. I've seen some Instagram comments.
I don't know about that.
You obviously know that Ed Ogeron admitted he was pretty. He knows that if they would have gotten that 3rd and 17, which was arguably could have been luck because Joe Burrow executed that perfectly. He said, if Texas gets the ball back with 1 timeout, I believe it would have been 1, maybe none, but there was still 2 minutes left, I do believe. It's plenty of time for Sam Ehlinger, who has done very well in those situations before.
Right, well, he did battle back, multiple times.
Horrendous first half.
Yeah, and it was a rough game, but if you're just looking at the second half, he kept battling back, so that was, I don't think it was too much to be.
And he also did throw
of.
for 400 yards against LSU's secondary, which has going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. Grant Delpit at safety. They have the 5-star corner, Derek Stingley, who was on Colin Johnson most of the game, and then the other corner, I cannot think of his name right now.
Oh well.
He's really good, and so he did do good against that.
Yeah, I mean, when you're getting bodied like Texas was on defense, it's tough to battle back on offense, but Ehlinger was able to do it. Just not enough.
Yeah.
So, but that's, again,
that was going to be a money-making game for Colin Johnson, for a lot of players on Texas. Colin Johnson probably didn't really make any money, only had 3 catches, but other senior wide receiver Devin Duvernay had 11. I think he had 11 catches. 10.
I want to say he did. Last I checked, I mean, it was a good number, because most if we were to do this podcast when immediately after, most of what I was going to talk about is that it was basically the Ehlinger and Duvernay show.
Yes, and Duvernay 12 catches, 154 yards.
12. Okay, so. I mean, he was the guy, so I don't know, maybe LSU just had too much diversity.
Yeah.
And Texas just couldn't get the ball to other people.
That's for
defense was too good, but
and I would say that Devin Duvernay's draft stock definitely improved. He's definitely one of the fastest players in college football. Let's see, here's the other Brandon Eagles, sophomore wide receiver, had 5 catches. He was second. And so everyone else was 3 for Colin and 12 for Duvernay.
Yeah, that's it's something, that's for sure. All right, well, let's go on to Rice. So, I mean, obviously an improvement, I assume.
Yes, for sure. They came in. They realized they needed to bounce back from the LSU game, and Rice is, not only is it Rice, but Rice is having a really bad year. They're 0-3 now, and Texas really went out and kicked the tires off of Rice, I guess you could say.
Correct.
Ended up being 48-13. And Ehlinger really did bounce back, had 23 for 27, only 4 incompletions. He had 3 touchdowns. Keontae Ingram bounced back after his struggles, 13 carries, 74 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And freshman wide receiver Jake Smith had, I know he had 2 touchdowns, 6 catches to go along with that. He was coming out. He's listed as the number 2 slot receiver right now for them, right behind Devin Duvernay. Last year, Lil Jordan Humphrey was the slot. And he went on, I believe he had over 1,000 yards receiving, had around 80 catches. Obviously, Sam Ehlinger loves to throw to the slot.
Right.
The question coming in was who was going to replace Lil Jordan and Devin Duvernay was playing on the outside last year, got moved to slot. But Jake Smith will probably take over that slot receiver, and he's already getting Jordan Shipley comparisons, who is one of the greatest Texas wide receivers. He was a 4-star from Arizona, and I heard during fall camp from some others that all Sam Ehlinger wanted to do was throw to Jake Smith.
Right.
That's really
Okay.
all. When the quarterbacks were running drills, he would just really pound it to Jake Smith.
Okay. Well, encouraging if you're Jake Smith, I
Yes,
guess, right?
that is for sure.
Yeah. So I guess not too much to talk about on Rice. I mean, like you said, it's Rice. But it's a good sign, right? I mean, you definitely want to see a bounce back.
Yeah, you bounce back fine. And the thing was that a lot of people were talking about was it needs to be the game where Texas finds the number 2 corner.
Right.
And so as far as I know, Boyce got most of the snaps. He'll probably be the number 2 corner. Anthony Cook, who was the guy coming in that a lot of people thought could be the number 2 corners, he's frankly got to pull his head out of his butt. He's done some stupid things.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes with him. And also Texas lost. They have the Cowboy package, which I think they should have ran more of against LSU. The 8 defensive back package.
Right.
They won't be really able to run that anymore, as they have lost B.J. Foster, who is their nickel, and they also lost DeMarvion Overshone, who was playing Joker for them. And really, the Cowboy package was specifically to get him on the field to be the 8th defensive back / linebacker. So those 2 guys are both out coming into the Oklahoma State game. They both missed the Rice game as well.
Right.
So that'll be something to watch in Texas' secondary, along with if Caden Stearns can finally get back on track.
Right.
We'll
Okay. Yeah, and so I guess that moving forward, right? I mean, do you think they will get the win against Oklahoma State?
Oklahoma State has won, I think it is 6 straight times against Texas in the past. The past 2 years, if you go back to last season, Texas had won 6 in a row going into Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State gave it to them in the first half, and I believe Texas was down at least 2 scores, maybe more at one point. And I know at one point in this second half they got down 35-17. They got down 35-17, and so Texas battled back. They ended up getting it 35-38. And Oklahoma State on 3rd and 6 converted to basically win the game. And then the year before, in Sam Ehlinger's freshman year, Oklahoma State, when they had Mason Rudolph, was a top 15 team in the country. They came into Austin, and I remember Texas gave up over 500 yards, but it was this. I believe the final score was 17-13.
Interesting.
Oklahoma State did not get a lot of points. The game went into overtime. I remember Sam Ehlinger. He after the game he had been in concussion protocol. There was I think it was 2nd and goal, and Texas was down a field goal. I want to say maybe it was 16-13. I think the final score. They were down a field goal, and it was 2nd and goal, and Ehlinger rolled out. And he basically threw it to an Oklahoma State player, and it ended the game.
Right.
So you knew it was right there. And I really think Texas can win this game, but I also think Oklahoma State has always had the formula for beating Texas. They have a redshirt freshman quarterback who's playing really well, fits right into Mike Gundy's system. Tylan Wallace, one of the best wide receivers in the country, is 2nd in receiving yards, and then Chuba Hubbard is 1st in rushing yards coming into this game.
Right.
So they really haven't played anybody, Oklahoma State.
Right.
So that is why they're not ranked. They're just on the outside looking in. I think what you'll have to look for is, I believe it'll be a shootout in the 40s, 49-42, normal Big 12 game.
Right.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Texas's defense steps up and ends up winning by 2 touchdowns, possibly.
Okay.
Because it is a redshirt freshman quarterback for Oklahoma State, still lacking in experience. It's going to be sold out at DKR this weekend.
Yeah.
So crazy atmosphere, over 100,000 fans going to be screaming at the top of their lungs. We'll see how he can handle that.
Yeah. So if you were to pin down one specific reason why Texas just can't get over Oklahoma State. I mean, as you said, it's been a while. Do you think there is one specific thing?
It would have to be the redshirt freshman quarterback throwing the football. Texas's secondary, their run defense is above average. It's better than their secondary is. So I would have to say that's probably one of the going to be one of the key stats coming into the game is if Texas's secondary can really hold up against Mike Gundy's offense, who's always had the recipe for killing them. And this is probably the most important game besides the OU game left on Texas's schedule.
Right.
You look at TCU and Iowa State, two other good teams left on their schedule, but really this is probably, you haven't been able to get over the hump against Oklahoma State. I think they'll be 8-4, 9-3 at the end of the year. The Cowboys will.
Right.
So I think they could be in the top 25. So it could be a win for them. And I think they'll end up winning by a touchdown. I think it'll be close. But I think they finally get over the hump. I think Texas comes out motivated.
Right.
And maybe the defense, creates a couple turnovers. Look for Caden Stearns to really try to get back on track this game.
Okay. So that's good. That's I don't expect them to lose, honestly. Texas just seems like a better team this year. You can say what you want about the flaws in the LSU game, but like we said, that's LSU. They're looking incredible this year. So moving forward on Texas, what do you think? I mean, do you see any way for them to stay in playoff contention? I mean, is it feasible that they could possibly get in there?
I really think it is because the committee has looked at they have continued to look at the best loss, the losses, and if you went out, that'd mean you'd probably beat OU twice, and that could probably be OU's only loss the rest of the season. So you'd beat them in the Cotton Bowl and in the Big 12 championship. So it's 2 good wins. Like I said, Oklahoma State I think will be an 8-4, 9-3 team at the end of the year. That'll be a good win, and I think TCU will probably surprise a lot of people.
Okay.
So I really think it's possible to be 12-1, to be looking at it, and I really think it is. I think we could see them. I really do see them going 11-2. I think they can. What I think will happen, they'll lose to OU in the Cotton Bowl.
Okay.
But they'll beat OU in the Big 12 championship.
Right.
And be 11-2 and be number 5, number 6, just on the outside looking in, and quite frankly, probably playing LSU again in the Sugar Bowl.
Okay.
I think that would be interesting to see.
Well, that would be an interesting matchup.
That would be for the 3rd time in 2 years because they play again next year as well.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll have to see. And everyone who thinks Georgia can get into the playoff, I think Georgia's really good. But unless they win all their games, go undefeated, and beat Bama for Bama's only loss, that's the only way I can see if Georgia is undefeated, if the 2 SEC teams get in. And really the LSU-Alabama game coming up towards the end of the year, that game will probably be will actually be a very good game as opposed to Alabama dominating as the past few years have been. Right.
Yeah, so that should be really interesting. So do you see them winning out, or do you think there's another? I mean, you just said there's probably a loss, but I mean, that's kind of, I know it's college football, but I mean, just to have that one on your loss record and knowing that a couple more and you're done.
Yeah.
Do you think that they're going to get that done?
I think it's a very good possibility that they can play. The thing is the defense. I know the offense will be, at the end of the year, will be a top 10 offense in college football, probably top 5. A lot of veterans on the offensive line. They have Zach Shackelford, their starting center, who's been the starter for 4 years. Will probably be a top 3 round draft pick in the draft. Okay. And Colin Johnson, Devin Duvernay, a wide receiver, Allinger being a junior. The offense will be good. It will be up to the defense, I think, with all the inexperience there in the secondary. Linebacker, if they're to do it, either the defense has to turn it around, because obviously playing Jalen Hurts and OU will be something that that
Yeah.
will that's going to shock the secondary. So I think it's a possibility. I really think they'll lose to OU in the Cotton Bowl and go 11-2 and play in the Sugar Bowl again next year. I think next year is going to be Texas's year for as the defense gets more experience.
Right.
They'll have they will lose some offensive players, but their wide receiver core is loaded right now. Jake Smith, some other freshmen, Marcus Washington, who is a 4-star, a lot of people love. And really, defensively, they'll only lose, I believe, Malcolm Roach, who's a defensive end / defensive tackle, Jeffrey McCulloch, who's a linebacker, and one other line. Oh my gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, another line. So they'll only lose 3 starters defensively, and they have a lot coming back on the defense.
And do you think Ellinger comes back?
I think Ellinger comes back for sure.
Right.
I cannot picture a scenario where he does not come back.
Yeah, Ellinger he seems like such a Texas quarterback.
Exactly.
I mean, he fits in very well with the Colt McCoy sort of vibe, and I like the guy a lot. So yeah, I don't think he's declaring or anything.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But yeah, so if that's true, then I would be quite hopeful actually next year for Texas. But that's good. So I guess I wanted to ask, like, for next year, what do you think about recruits? Like, are there any clear standouts that you think you absolutely have to be looking at for next year?
For Texas's class?
Yes.
So right now they have the number 5 recruiting class. They are just ahead of Georgia, like .70 points or something. So Georgia's a 4-star, I think, away from edging over them. And Texas's class is really filled up. They have 19 commits. Most of the time you take around 24, 23. Right. So there's only a couple of guys left that they're going to take. They were in June, they were like the 40th class. They were in the 30s and the 40s, and they had that surge over the summer where they just skyrocketed.
Right.
Some names that you could throw in there: Ethan Pouncey, 4-star corner; Kitten Crawford, a 4-star cornerback. You throw in wide receiver Quentin Johnston, who's out of Temple High School, who's a top 80 player, Vernon Broughton, defensive lineman from Cy-Fair. So really, they're only looking at a couple more guys to fill up in the class, and some LV Bunkley Shelton out of California. He's a 4-star wide receiver who continues to climb in the rankings.
Right.
Who's been all over the place. A lot of people think it's Texas. Some think it's Oregon, USC, Washington. Those are the 4 teams brought up most. So he's one that they're really targeting. And then defensive lineman from Cedar Creek. Sorry, my bad.
It's all right.
He's from Cedar Creek High School. He's one of the guys that they're looking at to take. Those are the 2 only really guys that you talk about. They're obviously still on for the cornerback Keely Ringo, the number 1 corner in the class. He's after his visit to Texas and over the summer, he was considered to be a strong Texas lean. Everyone was super high on him going to Texas. Then Georgia, he had a visit with Georgia, and Georgia's really taken off on him since then. So the word is he's going to be commit to Georgia, but he doesn't plan on committing for a while.
Okay.
And so Texas is still, there's some optimism around him that we'll see if they can get him. But really, other than that, those are really the guys. And I don't expect a lot of them to come in right away and play. If it were to be anyone, I would talk about either the wide receivers and at Quentin Johnston. He would be one. And then obviously the 5-star Bijan Robinson at running back, who's really talented. He's the number 3 running back in the class. He's their highest ranked recruit. He would probably be one of the contenders to come in right away. But Texas's class is really almost filled up. And with the early enrollment now, when you can enroll in December, that's really why there are so many classes filling up now and only very few targets left for the team.
That's good. All right. So we're going to move on here. So who does take home the Heisman this year? I mean, early on, I think I was taking Lawrence before the season started, but I don't think so anymore. I think they're going to go with somebody like, someone like Hurts. But do you think there's anyone who can challenge him?
I think Tua's having a really good year. Tua Tagovailoa
Right.
at Alabama, he's really playing well. Joe Burrow's playing well, but for all LSU Heisman hopefuls ever, it's always been they play well, and then when Alabama comes along, their Heisman chances diminish. Leonard
Right.
Fournette, people were willing to hand him the Heisman. I believe it was 3 or 4 years ago. Through 6 weeks, he was off the chains in stats.
Right.
After the Alabama game, he fell off a cliff. He still had some couple good games after that, but really So that I think Joe Burrow
Right.
can be a finalist. I think Ellinger will be a finalist. I don't think he will win it. He came off a year where he had over 40 touchdowns last year. He's one of 6 players to have ever done that. At
Right.
least 25 passing and 15 rushing. Tim Tebow, Johnny Manziel were 2 other guys that have done it before, and obviously those were Heisman winners. So I think Ellinger will have a better chance in his senior year to take it home. Jonathan Taylor, for the running back for Wisconsin, is someone to
Right.
really look at. But if I had to make a pick, Jalen Hurts is also playing really well at
Yeah.
OU, so you can't count him out yet. So I can't really make a pick yet.
Right.
I'll have to hold out on that. But if I can pick a couple guys, it'd probably be Hurts, Tua, and Taylor would probably be if the 3 that have the highest chances
Okay.
for me. 2 others would probably be Burrow and Ellinger.
Okay. Yeah. No, that does sound good. Just off of that, do you have a favorite draft prospect from this year? Anyone like maybe a sleeper, somebody who has to go number 1? I mean,
I
it's
couldn't
early,
say
but
I
what
have
you
a
looking at?
sleeper pick yet, but there's a lot of talent just across the board. Last year was a very defensive heavy draft. This year
Right.
has a lot for quarterback. You got Tua, Tua would probably declare at Alabama. Justin Herbert
Right.
at Oregon, he came back for this year. I like him more than Tua.
Okay.
Bama quarterbacks have never really had success in the NFL. I think Tua will have some success, but I think Justin Herbert's the best quarterback in the class.
Right.
Jonathan Taylor is one of the better running backs. He's a junior though, so we don't know if he'll go. Travis
Right.
Etienne. But if you want to, just a couple Texas prospects that I want to throw in there, center, their center Zach Shackelford. He 4-year starter. He'll probably be a top 3-round pick. Colin Johnson, I think, will be in the 2nd round. I think his stock has fallen off a little bit. Duvernay, I think, will
Right.
be a top 4-round draft pick. And then Brandon Jones, senior safety, who's been very good. I think he'll be a top 4-round draft pick as well. So Texas has some guys. They really haven't had a lot of people drafted in the past few years. But I think this is a year they will have a lot more guys gone. And next year for Texas, left tackle Sam Cosmi.
Right.
He's a sophomore now. He was as his freshman. He started. He was an All-American. So this year he'll probably be a first rounder next year as well.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people on Texas team
Right.
lining up for that. But someone I'd really like though is probably Grant Delpit. He's one of my favorite players in the class.
Okay.
At safety for LSU. I believe he's all around safety. He'll be really good in the NFL. And I think if you had to pick one guy, if you needed a guy in the secondary,
Right.
Grant Delpit would be him.
Right. Okay. So yeah, good secondary players always really important for the draft. Do you think Tua goes number 1?
No, I don't.
You don't think so? Tank for Tua is not real.
I would tank for Herbert.
Really?
I think Tua is good. I just don't think number 1. I don't think he will go.
So you don't think he should go number 1?
I don't think he should.
And you don't think he will either?
If the teams I would look at would be the Dolphins, even though they do
Right.
have Josh Rosen. So I just think if you're gonna tank for anyone, it should be Herbert, in my opinion. Tua still has been good. He's been really good. I think he'll do well. I just feel like Herbert fits the pro style more, the pro style
Right.
offense. And now that he's had a year to come back to Oregon, I think his stock will increase even more. So tank for Tua. I would tank for Herbert if you're for anyone.
Right. Yeah, the Dolphins. That's hilarious, right? I mean, it's this might be worse than the Cleveland Browns.
They are terrible. They are awful. I really, Josh Rosen will probably be starting soon, I would say.
Yeah. What a sad story that is, too.
That's terrible. I heard that I forgot. I believe it was the Giants that on the radio the other day they were talking about Daniel Jones, and they said it would be funny if Daniel Jones did what Josh Rosen did, basically, is tank, then get the number one pick, basically tank for the team, and then they select Tua or Herbert.
Oh my god!
And that would be terrible.
No, that would be absolutely horrible. So yeah, I guess that's just it. With the number one spot, right? I mean, do they go with Tua? Do they go with Herbert? I mean, do you not go for the number one spot? Do you trade back because you do have Josh Rosen? Do you want to like? I would feel, and I don't like Josh Rosen per se, but I do think that it would kind of be a waste to just throw him away.
I do too, and they have 3 first-round draft picks now, if I do believe that is correct. They have the Steelers, and the Texans as well.
They have Steelers, Texans,
and their own.
Theirs, and I want to say they have the Saints' second-round pick.
Okay.
Or that it's either they have the Saints' second-round pick or they have the Saints' second-rounder next year or first-rounder next year. But yeah.
So there's a lot there to really redo the team. Obviously, right. The Steelers, theirs and the Steelers pick, I think could be high. Some people were saying that after what the Steelers did, trading their first overall or their first round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick was kind of dumb, because now if they say Mason Rudolph better be the successor,
right.
If not, they don't have a first round pick if they do very badly this year, to replace Big Ben, because Big
right.
Ben is getting old. So I think
he might be done.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins will have 2 top 10 picks, probably being the Steelers in their own, unless Mason Rudolph is able to turn it around for that team.
Right. Okay, so I guess moving on fully into the NFL, I did get an alert saying that apparently Ramsey will be suiting up for tonight's game. I don't see it on here, but I'm pretty sure I got the alert. Yeah, Ramsey will suit up on Thursday Night Football. He'll play against the Titans. Honestly, this is something that I've been waiting for a long time. Jalen Ramsey, he's really good, but where is he going?
I really do not know. I mean, obviously the Bills have been a team that he said that have really want him. The Bills and then the Raiders as well. I really don't think. I just don't see him getting traded anywhere. I believe it ends in a cut situation for me.
This year?
I think it could, because
they're expected to move him on Friday.
That is true, and I just really don't see a scenario where a winner kind of comes out of it. Where as the Raiders, everyone was like with the Antonio Brown situation.
Right.
Jalen Ramsey is I would say in the level of clown. He can be a clown sometimes. He says some pretty stupid things. So I would say there's a possibility he gets traded. But for me, I'm going to make a bold prediction. My opinion, and I would say bold prediction as well, is he ends up getting cut, because really he's so that's what I would say happens. I'll probably end up being wrong, but that's why I'm gonna go out on a limb and say
the bold prediction.
Go out and if it does happen, I'll look like a genius.
Right.
But if it doesn't, I'm gonna get ripped in the comment section.
Right. Rip Jared in the comment section. But no, I mean, I don't see how they could possibly cut him, because they need draft capital, man. I mean,
yeah, that is true.
Especially if they're going to have to move on from him. I honestly, the Chiefs are in win now mode. So what could they possibly be not willing to throw at the Jaguars?
Yeah, that is true.
I don't think they have a first rounder this year, but they have one for next year, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Or they have some first rounder that they can throw. So I think the Chiefs, unfortunately, I would hate to see that, because I don't want to see the Warriors of the NFL.
Yeah, that is true.
I'd rather Ramsey come to Houston or something, but that's a little biased, I suppose.
Yeah. The only way they could get him is if they offered their 2059 first round draft pick.
I think if Ramsey hit free agency, that's the best option, because Ramsey does like Houston.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of reasoning towards that. We don't really have time to get into my master conspiracy theory on why Ramsey will come to Houston, but I do want to move on quickly on. So the Giants benched Eli Manning. just like every other team has benched every other quarterback. I mean, the last time we've really seen somebody have to sit behind an experienced quarterback who's maybe not doing as well as people want him to was Mahomes sitting behind Alex Smith. That obviously worked out very well. So why are the Giants throwing in Daniel Jones so early when they can just let Eli go out on his last season, obviously lose games, get a better,
Probably pick a wide receiver,
right,
offensive lineman. Their defense has some potential on it, but
do you think this is a good idea for them to bench Daniel Jones?
I was surprised.
Or to bench Eli.
I was surprised when they first came out with that when they released that he was going to start, because I thought Eli was going to ride it out 8 to 10 weeks, and then we see Daniel Jones, week 11, week 12, let him sit. So I was really surprised. But it is good for Daniel Jones to go out and get experience.
Right.
The experience, but the thing you could fear is, he just becomes. He does decent, but the team around him's not good enough, so the team just ends up being 5-11,
like David Carr, RG3,
exactly,
Andrew
all those other guys, and then quite frankly, either gets hurt or just comes so developed into losing that he can't get out of it, even when they get better assets that aren't like the greatest assets. Still, just a better roster around him.
Right. So it is dangerous. I have to take the full stance that they should not have started him, because when they picked him, it wasn't like, oh, this is our guy. Like they made it clear that he was more of a project, right? I mean,
yeah.
So I think he should have sat behind Eli. And again, I think the Giants have a first rounder this year, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Even if they don't,
so.
I mean, you gotta that's good for you even if Eli does bad, right? If he doesn't
that's for
tear
sure.
it up, then
I can see where you're coming from for sure. And so, but I also come from the other side and say, well, he was the 6th pick in the draft, and that was kind of for all those fantasy football players. I picked T.J. Hawkinson as my tight end, and I got so much crap for it. And I said they picked him with the 8th pick in the draft or 5th. It was top 10 for sure. And I said, well, you pick, if you're gonna pick a tight end top 10, you better use him in your offense.
Right.
Like even if it's the Lions who didn't use Eric Ebron. So, but it is the 6th pick in the draft, and I feel like you could have waited longer, but eventually the fan base would have said, well, he's our first round draft pick. We need to see him, and I thought that would end up happening week 10, week 11, somewhere around there, kind of like the Joe Flacco situation.
Right.
That did happen earlier with Lamar Jackson. So
I feel like Eli deserves a little bit more respect than a week 3 benching.
Yeah, that's true.
Just how I feel.
I love how he handled it, though. He was very classy
absolutely.
about it. So I do agree with you that my stance would be they should have rid it out a little longer. Maybe something happens, but the Giants are just bad, in my opinion.
That's true.
They have one good player on their team, as far as we know, in Saquon.
Right.
That's proven himself. They have a lot of young players in DeAndre Baker, who I really like at corner. So we'll see where that team goes from here. I just think that it was going to become the situation where we picked him with the 6th pick in the draft, and they wanted to get over with it sooner. So I want to bring up this, though. Some people have been talking. Do you think Eli Manning is a Hall of Fame quarterback?
I 100% believe Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer.
I do not believe it.
Okay,
he won 2 Super Bowls, and
most quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame only have one. I mean, all you really need is a Super Bowl to get in, and even then, sometimes not, right? So, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't Steve Young only have one, or does he have 2?
Steve Young has 2, I do believe.
But there are plenty of Hall of Fame quarterbacks with only 1 Super Bowl, and Eli has 2, but not just 2. Jared, he has 2 against the greatest of all time.
That is true.
You don't just go in and beat Tom Brady, especially on their undefeated season, and not get in the Hall of Fame. I don't believe that. Another point to that is most people will say that, he had a great coach, so it's not really Eli. But, I mean, can you honestly name a quarterback in the Hall of Fame who wasn't coupled with one of the all-time great coaches?
Yeah, that is true.
Every Super Bowl winning team had a great coach. I mean, I can't really think of the last one. You want to say Gary Kubiak, but honestly, I mean, Peyton Manning was a coach then. And I'll defend Gary Kubiak. That's my boy. But no, every Super Bowl winning team has had a good quarterback. So, I mean, a good coach. So that's just how I
I
feel
don't
about
think
it.
he should be, but I think he will be.
Well, I think the opposite. I think he should be, but I don't think he will.
Really.
I mean, I want to see him so bad, and there is a reality where he will be in there, but
Well,
I'm scared.
you do run a fan page called Manning memes.
I mean, that's obviously a
Are you
meme.
going to end up changing your name to Daniel Jones memes?
No, I don't think so. I think Eli's too legendary, and I think he's coming back. I've always been an Eli fan. I'm not a Giants fan, but I've always been an Eli fan. So yeah, I mean, obviously him and his brother, like, if you're talking about stats, obviously Eli is nothing compared to most Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Exactly.
But in the postseason, it's pretty undeniable. He's amazing. His last postseason performance, Odell dropped like what 6, 7 balls.
Mm-hmm.
Eli was on the money.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's me. Real quick before we finish out, a lot of people are saying that the NFL is done with the pocket passer, and that the running quarterback era is just about here. And while we've seen a plethora of running quarterbacks, we've only seen 2 win a Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Steve Young and Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I believe that is it as far as I can remember. I don't think we're done with the pocket pass era, but I think we're gonna start to see more running quarterbacks.
I mean, there's only a couple non-running quarterbacks
exactly.
now.
Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger,
Right.
Daniel Jones.
Well, Daniel Jones can take off. So the thing about it is people are going to say, well, Patrick Mahomes can run, but Patrick Mahomes isn't a running quarterback. He has a cannon.
He has the athleticism.
And he can run if he needs to.
Yeah, the athleticism. What I want to know is, are you talking the guys who are going to get the plays called, the read options called, or are you talking about the guys with the athleticism to just get out of the pocket and?
No, I say mostly like the read option guys, because if we're talking if we're talking just the athleticism to get out of the pocket, Aaron Rodgers has got that. Ben Roethlisberger even had that. Even Drew Brees, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, you watch him get out of the pocket, he's fine. He's fine out of the pocket. So, no, I think. So yeah, I think Patrick Mahomes is still fitting that.
We'll start to see a turnover, I think, but I think we'll still see dominant pro style, because we're still getting about an even number of, I guess you could say dual threat quarterbacks as opposed to pocket passing quarterbacks this year. Justin Herbert pocket passing, and I'd even consider Tua a pocket passer, even though he does run sometimes. He doesn't have a lot of plays drawn out for him to run himself. He does have them, but in the NFL he'll become a predominant. You look at last year's class: Dwayne Haskins pocket passer, Daniel Jones pocket passer, guys with athleticism, but pocket passers. Obviously, Kyler Murray is a running quarterback. Baker Mayfield running quarterback, the last 2 taken. But I would say we will probably start to see in about 5 years, maybe 10 years, we'll see. I'd say we'd see at least 1/3 of teams with a dual threat quarterback starting.
Right. I mean, the way I see it is that most teams already have it. I mean, but that's okay. I mean, it's just, how is that going to work? It's going to take Brady to retire.
For sure.
So whenever that happens.
Whenever Brady retires, it'll probably be the official starting of the turnover.
Yeah.
Turnover day.
I agree. All right. Well, finally, in the Major League Baseball, the NL is kind of a madhouse, but the AL is kind of a lock towards the Astros when it comes to awards than the MVP, right? So you brought up something that the front runners are Mike Trout at MVP, Cy Young, you have Verlander and Cole, and then Rookie of the Year, Alvarez is basically a lock.
If Alvarez doesn't win Rookie of the Year, it's the ultimate bias, and I will probably shoot myself in the foot.
Yeah, this game is rigged if he doesn't win. So do you think that Bregman can pull this away from Trout? Because Trout is injured. So what are your thoughts on that?
We do have, 11 games left, I do believe. 10 games. So. 10 games around there. Bregman is hitting .296. He has 37 homers and, RBIs. I know he has more RBIs and runs scored than Trout. He probably won't catch Trout's home run number, which is 45. But if Bregman does well, let's say in these final 10 games, he gets his batting average over 300, he gets to 120 RBIs and gets to 40 home runs. So three homers, gets it over 300, I think he can do it. I know how much the media loves, the Angels and Mike Trout.
Right.
And Mike Trout has been the best player in the American League this year. But he's, missing the games. I think it's a possibility that Bregman does it. And obviously, if he just goes completely rogue, goes on an Alvarez streak where he has, let's say probably 14 runs batted in the final 10 games, maybe 6 homers or something like that. I think it's definitely a possibility. I just don't know how likely it is, for that. And I believe the Angels were just keeping Mike Trout in long enough just to make sure he could win the MVP.
Right.
So they have some type of consolation.
Yeah.
We have the best player in the American League, but we still suck. So.
Yeah. I mean, Trout, he's behind Bregman in hits by about 20.
Mm-hmm.
And Bregman has one more RBI than him, which is obviously only going to rise.
Yeah.
So, should it happen? Maybe. Because Trout, I mean, can you really get injured and win?
That's true. Yeah, that's what I have to say as an argument. Being a college football guy, though, I still follow the MLB respectively, and so I just think that if you were to, probably look at it on a big scale of the season, I'd say Mike Trout will probably win it because of the the landscape of. He had the best season of American League players. But I think there will be some votes for Bregman. He'll probably get second, I could say. In the AL. If he does win the MVP, the Astros will be the first team ever to have a Cy Young winner, the Rookie of the Year, and the MVP. I'd say the Rookie of the Year is locked. Cy Young is just about locked for JV. Yeah. And so we'll just have to see. If I had to put it into chances, I'd probably put Trout around in the 60% chance, 65% chance, and I'd give Bregman, a 35% chance. Give him the chances. But if he just flat out, sucks the final 10 games, there's no way. He just has to play well and get that batting average over 300 because I feel like a 299 to 300 batting average is a big leap.
Right. All right, well, that's going to do it. Jared, thanks for coming on. Got anything else to close with?
I was happy to come on the show. Y'all go follow at Texas Football News on Instagram and Twitter. We're growing over there. I post a lot of recruiting updates. I do Q&As with recruits sometimes. Alfred Collins was the name that I had on the tip of my tongue.
Oh, right.
The defensive lineman from that the Longhorns are looking at in this class. And if you're listening to this, Keely Ringo, I'm your number one fan. Thanks for having me, Evan.
All right. Excellent.